you for joining us on the PeakDay podcast, where we talk about fertility and natural family planning with our friends. Today's guest is Marshall Boyland. Marshall grew up in Montana and became Catholic with his mother when he was 10 years old. He met his wife, Gabriella, at Montana State. After getting engaged, they moved to Idaho to attend grad school, where they learned a symptothermal NFP method similar to CCL and completed their marriage prep course. Both Gabriella and Marshall were skeptical of the efficacy going into the class, but became fascinated by science behind NFP and amazed at the success rate. After successfully achieving pregnancy and navigating postpartum period, they became certified to teach the couple-to-couple method in 2021. Marshall and Gabriella now have 2 girls and are offering in-person CCL classes that usually correspond with their marriage prep schedules. Marshall works as an engineer and is involved in Respect Life, marriage prep, and the Knights of Columbus at his local parish. He loves to bike, backpack, camp, hunt, run with his dog, and play basketball in his free time, but prefers to do all these activities with his family when possible. Welcome, Marshall.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being on the podcast. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to talk with us about fertility and natural family planning. Can you tell us what your journey to NFP looked like?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Gabby and I, we met in college. We got engaged right like my senior year in college, when we were kind of the next stage in your life was beginning, and we had very little background on NFP. We had never heard of it growing up. We listened to a few Lighthouse Catholic Media CDs back in the day when the CDs were common, and like on road trips. And we heard of one that there's like one presentation kind of about kind of the morality, and it was more focused on why contraception is bad and all that. But there was one segment of like NFP, I think it was with Mother Teresa, how she used it to help mothers in India or women in India avoid pregnancy with like 99% effectiveness. But that's all it was said. So that was kind of my one data point I had on this. I was like, I don't think they would be lying about something like this if it's that effective. So I was that was kind of my nugget of optimism I had. As we moved to Idaho before we were married, and we did our marriage prep remotely there. And we found a couple that teaches the symptothermal method. And before that, when we were looking, Gabby's parents are physicians. They're from Columbia. And her dad had sent like a bunch of family planning stuff with like all the contraceptive methods. And there was, he did send one pamphlet on NFP. He was finding all like the kind of the medical research on it, and all he could find on NFP was like a pamphlet that you would just hand out after mass kind of thing. So it was kind of funny that that's all he could find. So we had that kind of side. We could see all the benefits of using the contraceptives, of the effectiveness, I should say. And then kind of ironically, my mom had known what NFP was and had taken, I think, a symptothermal class. And she kind of holds the opinion that you should have as many kids as you want, or as you can, not as you want, just no matter what. And so she didn't want us to use it, I think, or any method to postpone pregnancy. So we were kind of cut in the middle. Fortunately, we found the couple that taught that symptothermal method. And Gabby pretty much thought the class was like a rhythm method going into it. I was a little more open-minded, just because I was clinging to that 99% data point I had, that just I didn't think they'd be lying from like a Catholic resource like that. And so we went to it, and I think the first class, it was structured pretty similarly to the CCL. We talk about kind of just the effectiveness, and then what the overview of what the symptothermal does just to track fertility and all that. And after the first class, Gabby was really excited, actually. She went from skeptical to very optimistic and interested in it, just because there's she liked the scientific side of it, really, the kind of how your you can track this stuff using biological markers. And I thought that was really interesting too. I don't have any biology background, neither does she, but she just kind of gravitated towards it a little more. And then we used it to postpone pregnancy while we were in grad school, and then we moved to Boise and got some jobs and a house, and then we had our first girl about a year after we moved over here. So it's worked very well for us.
Was your natural family planning class required for marriage prep?
No, actually, we did an online marriage prep because we got married in Montana, just where my family was from, and we had a lot more friends in that area, so it was going to make traveling a little easier. And so we did it online through the Diocese of Denver, and it was a great marriage prep. Actually, we spent like 3 hours every Friday for like a month and a half at least of reading, that was just together, and then we had to do stuff on our own. So it was very in-depth. It was great. They encouraged us to take an NFP class. I don't blame them for not including it. It's kind of out of the scope of a online marriage prep kind of online class. Just include also another 3-month spaced out NFP course. So they at least encouraged us, and we were taking the marriage prep course before we did the NFP course. So they encouraged us. We just looked it up, found them, and I think we had some overlap between the marriage prep and the NFP. So,
was it because you were both Catholic and you felt like it was important to pursue that and at least look at it, that you felt like NFP was worth looking into?
Yeah. We had some really tough conversations before we got married about just how we're going to, follow the church teaching, if we're going to get married in the church, if we're going to have kids, how we can, with conviction, teach them the teachings of the church, if we're not following even one of them, or if we're at least not striving to follow them. No one's perfect, but that one's it's hard to teach your children with conviction to follow the church if you're not doing it yourself. So we had kind of we both agreed that we had to align on how we were going to do that, and so that kind of led us to the learning NFP for sure.
So you felt like your marriage prep was really well done. How important do you think it is for NFP maybe to be included in marriage prep? Yeah,
I wish it was always required as part of the marriage prep. The Diocese of Denver is normally required, actually. So this was just an exception because it was an online one. So to their credit, I wish the Diocese of Boise would, but we at least are required to have some information on it. So we help with the marriage prep mentorship at our local parish, and they have a nice booklet there's like 12 chapters, and one of them is NFP, and it's a pretty good overview, actually, far more than I had ever seen before that. I just wish they would still require a course just because of how important it is with the prevalence of contraception in the culture. And
so you were just recently interviewed for Family Foundation's Responsible Parenting. How does the use of natural family planning lead to making different decisions about parenting?
It definitely requires you to have a more continuous and regular discussion with your spouse about family planning, and it feels far more connected than a contracepting couple. It just seems like it's more so kind of on or off. It's like, well, we're not now, and we don't need to talk about it for until it comes up, whenever that could be. It certainly fosters an appreciation for life, I think, and the intimacy between the couple.
Can you think of maybe any specific decisions that you've made as parents that having learned NFP has helped you make?
Yeah, I don't know if it would change maybe our family planning timeline. What we had, we knew we were in grad school, not making a lot of money, not a lot of stability. We wanted to postpone pregnancy while we were there. But certainly with just how kind of in communion we are with the church, it's really, that one's hard to kind of estimate how different your life could be if you weren't in communion with the church and involved in all that. So I'm sure it would be very drastically different if we weren't as involved as we were. And just the networks and the friends and like the good Catholic friends that you make through that, it all has kind of a ripple effect. And yeah, we definitely plan to teach our girls basically charting, at least when the time is right. I think that's such a cool thing for young girls specifically to learn about, because it's part of a natural cycle of their body, and not something to be kind of ashamed of or worried about, or it's just more knowledge about what's going on, and hopefully they have a little more confidence about it and that kind of thing.
So when you're talking with other couples about natural family planning and they're skeptical, what is your advice to them?
Yeah, education never hurt anyone. It doesn't take that long to take a class. If it's like 3-hour class once a month for 3 months, and then you pretty much know everything. Not everything, but you know quite a bit. And the charting is very straightforward, especially with the PeakDay app. We used paper and pencil and stickers when we were in grad school. We didn't have the smart enough phones really to have a ton of apps on there, so we were just trying to keep it as analog as possible. But now it's way easier with that PeakDay app.
Is there something special that you really appreciate about the app?
It's nice to be able to see everything all at once, like previous months and all that. You can just the usability. Gabby uses a lot more than I do, but it's great accessibility for couples that maybe they're feeling a little overwhelmed with the amount of information from the NFP class, and the charting feels a little overwhelming. The app can certainly help bridge that gap quite a bit to give some couples more confidence, maybe, that if they're not as sure. And learning the symptothermal rule can be a little daunting at first. So maybe if somebody can see it in the app first and kind of have some reassurance that they are interpreting their chart correctly, that it can help build confidence and help somebody facilitate somebody to keep using the NFP method.
You and Gabby both teach the CCL Natural Family Planning method. So what is it that excites you about teaching couples about NFP?
Yeah, I think this is true for both of us, just that we can hopefully reach other couples like ourselves at our time in our life. When you're engaged, a lot of people are in that young adult phase where they're trying to figure out where their life is going, who they're going to spend their life with, that kind of thing, that there's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of uncertainty. It's great to have that connection of NFP. And if someone doesn't know what they're trying to figure out what to do for their family planning, I think it's, I just love the fact that we can be that kind of guide for them, just like our couple was for us.
Would you say that learning natural family planning and all of the discussions that are required helps you with discussions about other things as far as your family is concerned?
Yeah, for sure. I think in our CCL class, I think the slide says if you can talk about NFP, you can talk about anything, which is totally true. I mean, discussing family size, you have to talk about finances, emotional stability, physical stability. If you're in a home that can provide for another child, and almost every aspect of a marriage is required for that. So it's a great facilitation.
Thank you, Marshall, for joining us on the PeakDay podcast and sharing yours and Gabby's story of your journey to natural family planning. And congratulations on your new little baby.
Thank you.